Welcome to the First Things First podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Wolfe. Catch us Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern on FS1. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Tell us what you think and leave us a review. Time now to bring in Nick and the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. Dak Prescott and Dez Bryant have struggled to get on the same page this season. Prescott has targeted Dez 25 times, but Dez only has 9 receptions for slightly over 100 yards. Dak Prescott said both he and Dez have to work to improve their chemistry.
We just both have to be better. As I said, I've got to make better throws, give him better chances. He would say that he's got to get open more. He's got to say he's got to make those 50-50 balls. So it's early, but we definitely have got to get that cleaned up and clean it up fast.
Cece, I'll start with you. Of all the issues that we saw from the Cowboys last week, is chemistry between Dak Prescott and Dez Bryant one of the big ones that stood out to you?
I don't think it's a problem right now because we're only 2 games into the season. We've talked about a lot of practice. That's been one of the themes ongoing in a very, very short season. But chemistry between a quarterback and a wide receiver, it's very, very different. Because there's really no excuse as far as practice time like the offensive lineman, lack of preseason games. Because as a wide receiver and a quarterback, you can get timing through the OTAs, all through the offseason. So at this point of Dez's career, because I'm going to put the responsibility on Dez because Dez is older than Dak.
Year 8.
He's got more experience, and he has to be more precise in what he's going to do. There's things in running routes, they're called indicators, all right? A lot of people have never even heard about, well, what are indicators? They're little movements that you make as a wide receiver before you're getting ready to make your break, which gives the quarterback a chance to anticipate. Now, you can see when they run the slant here, Dez makes a good hint or indicator. Dak puts the ball exactly where he wanted, but it's a fundamental problem. So that's not chemistry there. In the end zone, the interception there, that's chemistry. All right, because Dak was thinking he was going to do something else. So Dez has to be more consistent. Also, Scott Lanahan as a coach, he's got to be able to look at the tape and look at what they've done well over the last year in 2 games, put that in a package, and do that more often. Instead of trying to create new things to do where they would have more timing issues, look at the things that they've done well, all right? Put them into the game plan and continue to repeat those things. I believe this can be alleviated because I believe that Dez will get sharper because people are taking them out of their running game sooner than they've been able to do before. So they're going to have to rely on Dez, that intermediate and deep passing game. And Dez, Zach had a couple throws, one he threw off the field on a fade. So there's certain place that Dez wants the ball, and he's not able to get the ball there. And I think Troy Aikman, he indicated 2 games ago that Dallas misses Romo a little bit because of the big play. Because Romo would take more chances with Dez down the field with 50-50 balls, and what Romo would do was put more air on the ball. So if I look for one change, Jenna, I look for them to be able to get the ball down the field to Dez, but not be precise. Throw him a 50-50 ball, and that's a ball that the defender's not looking, but they call it 50-50 because the defender and the wide receiver, both of them have a 50-50 chance of getting it. But Dez is great at that.
Before you hop in, just following up, so is the responsibility on Dak or is it on Dez when you talk about chemistry between your receiver and your quarterback?
No, it's shared. And you could hear Dak. He was very, very mature about it. He said both of us. Because there have been some times that Dak, he missed Dez. Now, they're not always on film, and they're not always easily for the normal football fan to see. But in looking at the tape, you can see a couple times Zach could have been a little more precise, or there were a couple times Dez was open, but the ball went elsewhere.
Right.
All right, so I don't think it is. It might be shared, but that doesn't mean it's 50-50. Because Dez, the issue is, and by the way, it really is unfortunate that the 3 players on the Cowboys' names are Dez, Dak, and Zeke. That's right. Not, for people on television, it doesn't make it as easy as it should be. For Dak, Dak's got pretty damn good chemistry with everyone else on this football team.
Yes.
So the numbers indicate it. He throws up one for every 215 passes he throws to everyone but Dez. He throws an interception. 1 for every 215. When he's targeting Dez, it's 1 for every 30. So it's 7 times more likely when targeting Dez, the ball's picked off. Now, that might be partially because he is more ambitious with throws to Dez, but it also might be the things you're talking about. Lack of technique, lack of being on the same page. Here is why this is so important, though. The Dallas Cowboys offense, as potent as it is a bunch of known quantities. You know what you are going to get from Ezekiel Elliott. Last week, notwithstanding, you know you're going to get 4.5 yards a carry, 100 yards if you give him the ball enough. You know what you're going to get from the best offensive line in football. More often than not, your quarterback's going to be clean. There's going to be at least one running lane open. You know what you're going to get from Jason Witten. Nothing spectacular.
Absolutely.
He's going to run the route precisely. If you need 6 yards, he's probably going to cut it off at 7. He's not going to have any 70-yard plays.
Right.
You know
he's not going to drop a touchdown like he did last week either.
Correct. Like he is. You know what you're going to get from Cole Beasley. Like that doesn't mean it's great stuff, but there are a bunch of known quantities.
Cole Beasley is probably the 3rd best slot receiver in the NFL.
Right. And he is limited to a degree, but he's consistent. There's no pun intended here. Dez Bryant is the X factor. Dez Bryant is the unknown quantity with this team. This team last year was one of, if not the best offense in football. Well, they weren't the best offense. That was Atlanta. But one of the best offenses in football last year. And they did it with a mediocre production from Dez Bryant really all year until the playoff game. If Dez Bryant and Dak Prescott, because I'm not going to remove all responsibility from him, can develop the rapport that Dez and Tony Romo had, that is the only way this offense goes to another level. They don't necessarily need to go to another level, but if they are, it's not going to be because Zeke gets better. He can't get much better. It's not because Witten gets younger or Beasley changes or the offensive line gets better. The one gear that is not in full throttle is the Dak and Dez relationship.
So, Cece, take us behind the scenes a little bit. You have a guy that's been in the league 8 years. You have a guy that's been in the league 2 years. Is it Dez Bryant who says, you know what? Give me an hour after practice. Let's just throw that ball over and over again. Let's just stay and do it. Or does he think that because he's been doing this long enough, he knows it's going to happen for him, and it's on Dak to say, hey, listen, I think you and I need some more time together?
No.
Or does none of that happen?
I mean, the best example is the first example. That's what normal people do. Let's take some time. Let's go after practice. There's a few throws. There's a few routes. Let's clean those things up. The only thing about that is there's no DB in man-to-man coverage. So Dak, he doesn't have the pressure that he has in the game. So if you say, what is Dez's weakness? His weakness is lack of separation. Now, people would have said the same thing about me, but I catch everything, even when I'm covered. So there's a difference. When you have a young quarterback, when the DB is matted up with you, it's different than throwing after practice against air. Because against air, if you can't beat air, we say that in the NFL. You can't play in the NFL.
And the 2 interceptions that we keep playing again and again from the Denver game, the second one, if there was against air, that's a touchdown. What happened? What Aqib Talib there just out-muscled him. The first one, if it's against air, it's a bad drop, but it's not a disastrous game-changing play.
You don't get the results.
You don't get the results.
Yes.
And so, like, that's the key point here. And this is something that I've learned just from watching Dez's career evolve. We have ascribed him characteristics due to his body type and how he looks coming off the bus, so to speak, that he doesn't necessarily play with. You mention all the time that coming out of college, he reminded you of Michael Irvin. Not just because he went to the Dallas Cowboys, but height, weight,
attitude,
all
physicality, yes.
But he doesn't play, at least up to this point, and it's been a while, with that level of physicality. Dez should have an enormous physical edge on almost every corner. Talib might be the exception because Talib's just such a tough guy.
Right.
But on most guys...
But there's no corner stronger than him.
Right.
All right? So it's at least a stalemate as far as physical strength.
And if you...
Week in and week out.
And I understand the people that if you're a viewer and you're younger than me, you don't remember Michael Irvin's heyday. But Michael Irvin was not... The leaper on that Cowboys team was Alvin Harper. Alvin Harper was the guy that went deep or jumped high. Michael Irvin, guys were on him. And he was just essentially offensive pass interfering every play. Like, nope, I'm going to beat you up and get it. Dez, you see him. I mean, you see the pictures behind us. He is ripped. He is as physically imposing. If you ever get a chance to see a side-by-side of Dez Bryant and A.J. Green, they won't look like they play the same sport. A.J. looked like he runs the 200-meter hurdles.
Yes.
And Dez Bryant looks like he could be an extraordinary athlete at anything. But he doesn't play with that level of physicality. He plays similar to how A.J. plays, but doesn't have the speed and the precision of A.J. So that's the part that's on Dez. Dez has to use his physical talents better to his advantage than he has because they're clearly there.
Welcome back to First Things First. Joining us now from Boston is 5-time All-Pro and 2-time Super Bowl champ, Vince Wilfork. Hi, Vince. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm great. Thank you for getting up and hanging with us this morning. I got to ask how retirement is treating you because I know 8 a.m. TV calls, probably not part of the plan when you gave up football.
It is all good. Once here and there, I can live with.
All right, we'll take it. Hey, let me start with this, Vince. You retired after last season. You're 35 years old. We've been talking a lot this week about Tom Brady. He's still going strong. He's 40. You played with Tom. You know him on and off the field. He says he's got another couple of years left in him. That could be 3, that could be 15. Who knows with this guy and his crazy diets? What do you think about Tom Brady and what he's got left in that tank?
I think Tom is going to play as long as Tom want to play. I don't, at some point your body will fail you, but I don't see it failing him within the next 3 years. Just watch him play. And one thing about quarterback is always about footwork in the pocket and being able to throw the football. And those are two things that he still has, if not gotten better with footwork as he got older, because he dedicate more time in those areas. And as an old player, you can't do what you did when you was 10 years younger. It's things that you have to, before you could just roll out of bed and not touch your toes and just go and play a game or go to practice. But now, when you can't roll out of the bed, you kind of crank yourself out of the bed. You have to stretch and you have to do these things. So it's things you have to do differently as you get older. And I think Tom is starting to do those things, and he's been doing it for a while. And that's the one thing that keeps him above everybody else because he put in the work. He know areas that he has to attack and be better at and make sure it's on point. And, 2 of those are footwork in the pocket and his arm. And those 2 things you see on a weekly basis that he hasn't lost a step in.
Vince, you have tremendous insight, not only also in Tom Brady, but Mr. Kraft. I was very fortunate able to take a trip with him and the Kraft family to Israel this offseason. Now, you have to move over in the family because he also adopted me. I know he's adopted you. But Bill Belichick, as much as there's been put out there about Bill Belichick, most of us don't know him. And the version that we get through the media, I know the people that are very, very close to him, he seems to be very different. Give us some insight into who is Bill Belichick behind the camera that we don't see.
Well, Bill Belichick is a guy that only thing he cared about is his teammate and winning. It's pushing us to the highest level. We do things and he practices us like sometimes as if we were still in college. But it's just to keep us in reality and just to make us understand that everything we get, we got to work for, we got to earn, and he loves his players. I mean, guys that have been coached by Bill Belichick, some people might have different views of him, but majority of his players love him. And I think I've seen Bill from the time I was a rookie up until now. I've seen him actually transform into kind of get the understand nowadays players. Everybody know Bill is old school. I thought I thought Bill would never work with tablets and iPads. I really did, because I was the same way. I'm like, look, give me my pen and pad and give me my thick pieces of paper and let me study like that. But over time, with these guys coming out of college and they getting used to stuff like that, so over time he knew he had to change to be a better coach and understand his players. And I think he'd do a great job of understanding his players individually, what they need to be the best at their position. And that's why he's successful. That's why the New England Patriots are successful up under.
We talk about how he's successful, his method for going about that. You and the Patriots have had tremendous success against rookie quarterbacks. What does he do that's different than other coaches and has made him so successful going against rookies?
Well, I think it all starts with a mindset, to be honest with you. It's nothing magical that I can remember doing to a rookie quarterback. You watch film from him in college just because you don't have as much footage of him in the pros. But it's a mindset. It's basically a mindset. It's going out there, facing the rookie, and you don't want a rookie to beat you, plain and simple. It's nothing more than that. And just preparing well, being alert for anything, especially if you're dealing with a quarterback that's athletic or a quarterback with a big arm, understanding their strengths and weaknesses and being able to attack it. So to me, I think it's more of a mindset than anything that he can actually try to coach.
Vince, you've played with a bunch of great players all over the team, all over your teams, especially on defensive lines. You played next to Richard Seymour, but you also played next to a guy who might finish his career as one of the two best 3-4 defensive ends ever, J.J. Watt. When you're lined up next to J.J., what's different about how teams are attacking or trying to defend him than other even great players you've played with?
Well, at the end of the day, if you run away from him, he's gonna chase you down. If you run to him, you better have two. But as long as he draws two people and have that attention on him, it's gonna always be somebody that he's clearing up. But to line up to a guy that basically is so dynamic in every snap or every play, and he can change a game. You got to tip your hat to him. I mean, just being able to play with him and be in practice with him and just see the work he does and stuff like that, it's no question of why he's that good, because he put the work in. I've been around a lot of good defensive linemen, and he's another one where every snap he's got to be accounted for. I mean, you scheme plays because of him, and offenses are afraid of him. They're scared of him. But you got to try to find ways to attack a guy like that, because you can't run all the time away from him or all the time to him. So you got to draw up different plays to try to keep him thinking and stuff like that. But his motor never stops.
The Patriots are nearly a 2-touchdown favorite, biggest favorite of the weekend this weekend against the Texans. If this game ends with the Texans' victory, what will have had to happen?
Turnovers and just taking advantage of missed opportunities by the Patriots. Absolutely. I think the Texans have the defense that can play with them, but you have to capitalize, and you have to steal 2 or 3 possessions. You have to, and by stealing that means turning over the ball, scoring on defense and special teams. You have to get a couple of possessions to turn things in your favor. So if they can do that, I think they'll be able to beat them.
All right, people talk about your 2 Super Bowl championships. Neither of those teams was the best team you were ever on. I don't care what anyone says. The best team Vince Wilfork ever played for was the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. That is the greatest football team ever put together. I looked it up. You had 22 starters, 19 drafted. You had 20 guys that didn't start who were drafted. You had 39 guys drafted. Another few guys make rosters as undrafted free agents. Practices. Just take me back to playing with the greatest college football team ever and what it was throughout that season, or just the competition within practice.
It was all about, being from Florida, Miami. I'm coming from Palm Beach. We have we had the whole state of Florida on lock with recruiting. There wasn't a team that can come in and take any players that we wanted down at the University of Miami. You couldn't come in the state of Florida and get those guys like that. You know, and just being able to compete and practice every day. And we would go out and we practice as if it was games. So we would scrimmage every day. You know, we would compete every day. I mean, if it was training, I remember getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and we would have these training sessions and we are full-fledged. I'm talking about competing left and right. It's been over and we still out there. There's arguments, it's this, I'm stronger, I'm faster. And we always pushed each other. We always pushed each other to the max. And, you know, we love one another. We are truly family. I don't think there's any other school out there that rocked the way we rock. It was just something about being a Hurricane. And a lot of people didn't like it because we had swag and we talked a lot of crap, but we backed it up because we really didn't care about anything else but winning in the Hurricanes. And we showed that when we stepped on the field. But a lot of it came from being in state, playing against one another in high school, and then all of a sudden you're on this team together, so it's like an all-star team you're on, and we went around, you know, the nation beating up teams in college football. So hands down, 2001, we was bad boys.
Hey, Vince, I have to say I really like your hat. I have the exact same one. Mine says kale on it, but I feel like you and I are like this, and I'm right over here. It's like the same hat.
No. Let me tell you something. Only greens that get love over here is collard greens.
Somehow I knew you were going to say that. I think we all sort of fell in love with Vince Wilfork watching your personality jump off the screen on Hard Knocks. A, what was your experience like with that? And B, besides the overalls, is that where you came up with the Kingsford barbecue idea?
No, you know, my thing is, you know, I have a 100-acre ranch in Florida, and I have pictures of me, and when I work down there, that's what I wear, my overalls. If I'm baling hay or fixing something or whatever it may be, I'm in overalls. So, you know, in Boston, I kind of didn't really get into it because the weather was just so different in Boston. I was like, you know, I had them, but I didn't ever put them on. So now being here in Texas, I say now I can really, you know, rock my overalls, and sure enough, you know, Hard Knocks was there. So I was like, okay. Well, let me give, you know, people a little taste of who I am. And, you know, when I came in with my overalls, it was like Scammer Ashton. I mean, me playing, I always try to find a way that I can get through to my teammates. Because at the end of the day, football is fun. You're supposed to have fun playing it. And my whole career, I had fun playing football. I was passionate about it. I loved it. And how Kingsford came about is they seen when I tore my Achilles, I actually built the barbecue grill, and I had you know, my wife at that time, she said, I'm going to film. I'm going to film you. And I was like, okay, whatever. So the Kingsford bag was and I was dancing, just listening to my music, and boom, it went crazy. So once Kingsford saw that, they was like, listen, we think you'd be perfect for us. So I was like, okay. That's how Kingsford and myself, we got involved, and the partnership couldn't be no better because everything I do, I want to be the best.
Sure.
I wanted to be the best, and having Kingsford on board, you can't be the best without working with the best, and that's Kingsford. And all these years with tailgating, I say, you know what, when I retire, the first thing I want to do is tailgate. And here I am. We're going back to Boston. We're going to tailgate, and I'm going to live it up and do something that I always wanted to do.
All right, well, you got 3 hungry mouths here. One eats kale. The other 2 will eat literally anything you make. So the next time you tailgate, we would like 3 invitations. But I ask you one last question before we let you go. This is the most serious of all of them. What is more likely, Vince? You go on Tom Brady's diet, or Tom Brady eats exclusively your cooking for a month? Which is more likely to happen?
I'll never go on his diet, I tell you that.
Thank you, Vince.
Hey, thank you, Vince. And for those who don't know it, the NFL, this guy is a treasure, a great family man, great in the community. Much respect for you, Big V.
Thanks, man.
Vince.
I appreciate that, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
We want to welcome in Redskins head coach Jay Gruden. Coach, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Coach, I want to just start, first of all, with the new restrictions on practice. Several people have compared the first month of the season to an extended preseason. Cris Carter has been behind that the whole time. 2 weeks into the year, you guys are 1-1. How would you assess your team so far?
Well, we're still developing. Obviously, we're trying to create an identity for this football team. I think last week was a great step for us. We challenged our offensive linemen in a physicality realm, and they answered the bell, quite frankly, and ran the ball effectively. And defensively, you know, we got some new players with Zach Brown and DJ Swearinger and Jonathan Allen and Terrell McLean and Stacy McGee, and they're all trying to gel and find their way together. And right now it's a process, but I like where we're headed.
Coach, you talk about a lot of great players. You have one player that I'm very, very interested in his overall development. His name's Terrell Pryor. You've been with some dynamic wide receivers in Cincinnati, there in Washington. So you're used to developing them. Now, this is one of the hardest transitions that we've ever seen, going from quarterback to wide receiver. Where is Terrell's development now as a wide receiver in being your #1 guy?
Yeah, he's still developing, that's for sure. He's still trying to get that continuity with Kirk, and Kirk's trying to figure out how fast he is and what kind of balls he can throw to him when he can go get. So that's going to be a process that's going to continue to evolve a little bit. Terrell is still developing as a wide receiver. There's some things he does naturally that he's just a gifted athlete, and there's some things, quite frankly, he needs to work on, and we're continuing to work on that. The great thing about Terrell is he's willing to put the work in. He's willing to get coached. He wants to be the best, and he's on the right track to be one.
No, there's a lot of people that when they associate me, they associate a lot of things with my older brother, Butch, professional basketball player. I got a lot of my work ethic from him. We know you have a famous brother also. You guys are from Ohio. So I got to tell you, you had to be my first coach that I brought onto my show once we launched 3 weeks ago. So thank you for that. But also the influence your brother has had on your career and how you coach currently.
Yeah, he's been the main influence, quite frankly. You know, I played in the Arena League, I coached in the Arena League, but fortunately I was able to coach 7 years with my brother in Tampa Bay and really learned everything about the outdoor game from him. You know, X's and O's, motivation. He's a great motivator. He keeps everything fresh. He has great ideas week in and week out, formationally, motivationally. I mean, he's just a great coach, and I learned everything from him. And a lot of things we do today are things that I learned from him. So, you know, I appreciate everything he's done for me. Great mentor, great brother, and love the heck out of him.
Coach, Nick Wright here. This will be the last question about your brother, but jumping off what Cris said, I've seen him around his brothers to this day. They are grown men. They still, I feel like, are always about this close from wrestling around on the studio floor. The last time you and John actually got in a physical altercation, you were how old and who won?
Well, I was a freshman in high school. I started to get a little bit bigger. John was a big weightlifter, and that was the last time, man. I think he picked on me a lot when I was younger, but that all ended when I hit high school. You know, I hit puberty, I got a little stronger, got a little bigger, and it was a wrap. No more fighting for John because I could take him.
So once you won a fight, the fight's ended, is what you're telling us.
That's exactly right. No more fights.
Okay, all right. I love it. All right, on football, you guys obviously are in one of, if not the toughest division in the NFC. There's 6 of your games. You then get the schedule this year, and it's like, oh, what AFC division we get? Oh, the AFC West. 3 of the 4 teams are 2-0. So there's 10 of your games is against about as tough a competition as you could script out before the season. Can that be a good thing? If you can get through that type of gauntlet, can that be a team that better prepares your team for the postseason?
Yeah, I think so. We have to win those games, though. You know, every team in the NFL, I don't care what you say, they have some talent, and it's a great challenge week in and week out. But obviously, if you look at our schedule in the AFC West, how good they're playing, and obviously our division with the Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants, very good defenses, good coaches, good quarterbacks. It's going to be a grind for us, and we understand that no matter who we play, 16 weeks, it's a grind. And I think we have the right mentality here. We got the right people in-house to handle the grind, and we just got to come out and perform and do the best we can.
Coach, Giants head coach Ben McAdoo discussed the difficulty of calling his own plays as the head coach. You went back to calling plays this season. Can you talk us through some of the pros and cons of calling your own plays?
Well, I think the cons are probably that, when I was a coordinator at Cincinnati, I was able to just focus in on the offense. In between series, really, you're talking about the next series, you're looking at what they did the series before, but in between series now, I have to be involved in the defense and special teams. I can't just look at pictures the whole time and try to figure out what I'm doing. So I rely heavily on my staff. So Bill Callahan, Kevin O'Connell, obviously, Matt Cavanaugh, they're going to be a big part of the play calling duties also. Coach Callahan did a great job of previewing some runs for me in between series, and Coach Cavanaugh and Coach O'Connell did a great job previewing the passes. That's a big help. But that's the biggest challenge, is in between series not being able to really focus in on the offense and what's coming up.
This might sound silly, but I've always been curious. Is that the most fun part of the job? Of all the parts of your job, is actually
calling plays?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, yeah, calling plays is the best. I love it. I love being part of it. I love taking the fall when something doesn't go well, and I love being part of something that does go well. But ultimately, I've always said it's not about the plays, it's about the players, and they're the ones that are going to make the plays for us and make us all look good.
Hey, Coach, there's been a lot of discussion about your quarterback, Kirk Cousins. He's been franchised 2 years in a row. My personal belief, I know you don't care, I think he is a franchise quarterback. I think Washington's going the right direction when you have him under center. Assess his play after 2 weeks.
I think he's done well. I think there's some plays he wish he had back, as every player on our football team, a missed tackle or a blown blocking assignment or what have you. The quarterback's no different. They have the ball every time in their hand, and they have to make the correct decisions, imperfect throws under duress. And there's some throws that he's missed, but he's made some plays also, and I think he's got a great frame of mind. Kirk's always willing to work. He's always willing to study. He's working diligently on the game plan as we speak, and he just wants to get better. He wants to be the best. He studies other quarterbacks, and he's a great guy to have around, a great leader, and we're fortunate to have him this year.
Now, unfortunately for you, you're looking across the field at another great quarterback in Derek Carr. Now, what are some of the things that you've seen in him? Because I know you're like your brother. You guys love quarterbacks. So give me some of the attributes with Derek Carr that you know as a coach would make a guy dynamic.
Derek is fun to watch, man. I'm telling you, he doesn't care. He gives his receivers chances. I mean, he throws the ball in spots that I would never even dream about throwing the ball, and those guys come down with it. He gets rid of the ball quick. He's accurate. He's hard to get to because he gets the ball out of his hands so quickly, and he gives his receivers a ton of opportunities to make plays, and they make plays for him. But he's got great command of the offense. You can tell he's a great leader. The players all respond to him and play well around him. And like I said, he's fun to watch other games. Hopefully he's not fun to watch Sunday night.
Sunday night, nationally televised game. Obviously, Derek Carr is the marquee player on the offense for the Raiders, the marquee player on the defense, and the guy that I imagine has stolen a few hours of sleep from you this week is Khalil Mack. When you're going up against such a dynamic, singular talent, I know you got to scheme against all 11, but without giving anything away, what are some special things you can do to make sure one guy doesn't wreck your entire game?
Yes, unfortunately, he lines up on both sides of the ball. Fortunately, the left tackle we have is very, very good in Trent Williams, and Morgan Moses playing well at right tackle. But there are some things we can do formationally and try to get some chips on him, but he does move around. He'll actually play inside from time to time over the guard. He'll play on the right side. He'll play on the left side. He's hard to just track. He doesn't line up in one spot where you can just put a tight end there and chip him on the way out, or a back over there and chip him. But we will have a plan for him, get the ball out of our hands quickly, maybe some keepers, some bootlegs, and obviously chip him when we can. But ultimately, if it's 3rd down and 8 or 9, we need to get our eligibles out. Our tackles are going to have to block them. It'll be a great challenge for him, but we have faith that our guys will do good.
Hey, Coach, talk to us about the health status of Jordan Reed and what you're expecting out of him Sunday night.
Yeah, we'll see. I think he's a little sore. Obviously, he did some work yesterday, which is good to see, but we'll have to wait and see. I think it's going to be a game-type decision where he is. His tight end is – you can't just bring him in there and throw pass routes to him. They got to be involved in the blocking. And if he doesn't feel up to it with the strength and it's pretty sore, then we could keep him out. But, he's a tough guy, and we'll have to just monitor that come Sunday morning.
Coach, finally, quickly here. John Wall or Bryce Harper? Which one? Your favorite DC athlete that's not on your team? You got to pick one. Come on.
Oh, man.
Cause some controversy, Coach.
Wall, man. John Wall.
You don't have to answer, Coach. You do not have to answer.
I said John Wall.
He said
John Wall.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's John Wall. That's the right answer,
all right.
by the
Oh,
way.
yeah, absolutely.
The right answer.
That's the right
Thank
answer.
you, Coach.
My daughter's name is Harper. You chose wrong, just so you know. But we thank you anyway so much for being with us today. Thanks a lot, Jay Gruden. The AFC West is looking like the strongest conference in football right now with 3 2-0 teams. The Broncos will head on the road to take on the Bills. The Chiefs will stay in the division and face the 0-2 Chargers. And the Raiders will head to Washington to face the Redskins. Mark, let's break down the AFC West. Who is the best in the West?
I think the most balanced team in the West is the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they're both balanced on offense. I think they have outstanding defensive players at all 3 levels of their defense, their D-line, their linebacking core, and their secondary. Alex Smith has got weapons on the offensive side. They can spread the field. I also think that Andy Reid is one of the most unique play callers from the standpoint of being able to set people up. So you'll run what you run, your stable of plays, but you always have some type of unique play action stuff off that. He creates probably 4 big plays a game just through game planning and setting his offense up based on some of the just staple things that he does. So I think play calling wise, I think they're the most balanced team. Obviously, the Raiders are probably the best offensive team in that division. Denver's the best defensive team in that division, and I think Kansas City's the most balanced team. So I'll take Kansas City as the best in that division.
Listen, Kansas City's my hometown team I grew up going to the games and rooting for, so I'm a little biased here. I agree with the most balanced part with a slight asterisk, which is if Trevor Siemian is even 80% of what he was against Dallas, that to me is the scariest team. Like, Oakland has a legit flaw. And I thought Denver did as well. I thought Oakland's legit flaw is against really good teams, can the defense force enough stops? We know Khalil Mack is awesome, but aside from that, can they force enough stops? When they just beat up on the Jets, but letting the Jets score 20 points maybe reveals some potential flaws with that defense. I thought going into the season, Denver's flaw this year is going to be the same one last year, which is, I shouldn't say terrible, but poor quarterback play. I know you're a believer in Siemian, correct?
See, I would say that poor quarterback play, when your arm is strapped on to your body with tape because it's about to fall off and
so
you
what
play
do you mean?
10 games like
people know.
So Trevor Siemian had a severely separated shoulder. They literally had to have a team of people put his shoulder pads on and take them off every day. I mean, he had his arm taped to the side of his body, and he still threw 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 3,400 yards. I mean, the kid has got unbelievable toughness, but he's got a great skill set. He can spin it, and he's intelligent. He understands. He throws with anticipation. He's got the chance to be a legit quarterback in this league.
He sounds like he's a hit away from that whole limb just falling off.
Well, I mean, they surgically repaired it. We'll see. He's got to take better care of himself. But that's why they invested a first-rounder at the left tackle position. That's why they went out and got Menelik Watson from the Raiders, who has struggled in pass protection. That's why they got Ronald Leary to play guard for them. I mean, they have made some changes, traded for Alan Barber from the Philadelphia Eagles in the preseason to bolster that offensive line. If that offensive line can hold up and protect Siemian can be a upper, in that, not that first tier of quarterbacks, but that second tier of quarterbacks that we talk about.
You guys make great cases for both Kansas City and Denver. San Diego, I'm going to still keep calling them San Diego because I just read an article that they might be moving back to San Diego.
So you don't want to
he wants to get ahead of the
until I
story.
see them moved in L.A. and everything, not in Carson.
I call them the Southern California Chargers.
So
Get ahead of it.
until then, but they're really, really talented. And these are tough games when you play San Diego. So all 3 teams have to play them. Eric Berry, they were able to cover up for him in week number 2. Are they able to do that as the season goes on?
Yeah.
I'm worried about the quarterback in Denver, but they have 2 good receivers that help really cover up for a young quarterback. I think the most intriguing, forget about who's best, the most intriguing is the Oakland Raiders because we have not seen the Raiders in that spot in a long time. We know where they are offensively. We know they have warts on the defense. But if this team can have a top 20 defense, they're going to be an elite team.
Just avoid having a bottom 10
They're going to be an elite team.
Yeah.
And Marshawn Lynch on a winner, it makes it interesting when the weather starts to change. and you get that ground where you're able to eat up the clock. So I think the Raiders are the most interesting team and the team I'm most excited to see how they develop.
The Raiders are interesting to me because for almost 2 decades, every guy that's come in there to coach them has said the same thing. We got to change the culture. Got to change the culture. And it never seems to get changed until you did what? Drafted Derek Carr. And that kid he's special.
Yeah, he's a class act, too.
And that, I mean, that's like, for me, that's like eating a turd sandwich. Complimenting the Raiders is like really hard for me as a Bronco.
Wow.
Yeah.
It really is.
Hearing that was hard.
How do you
for
think,
me
as a
too.
Chiefs fan, it is sitting next to him?
Wait, can I ask you a question,
Yes.
Nick? You brought up the Chiefs for a second. You're a Chiefs fan. We all agree at this table the Chiefs are the most balanced team in the AFC West. Are we all surprised by this? I happen to be a big Andy Reid fan, and I liked his team, but I did a ton of reading before this season started. Nobody had the Chiefs anywhere near the top.
So it's because
of disappointment.
Yeah, it's because of what they do in the playoffs. I mean, the Chiefs now, they have won 24 of their last 28 regular season games. Think about that.
Wow. No one knows that.
24
That's an amazing stat.
of their last 28.
Now, you're not amazing, but that's an amazing
Appreciate
number that came out of your mouth.
Thank you, CC. They, in the 2015 season, they finished the year winning 10 straight. Last year, they went 12-4, and now they're 2-0. They have been, since they started off 2015 terribly, but since week 7 of 2015, they have the best record in football by a decent margin. Better than the Patriots, better than Falcons, better than pick your favorite team. The Chiefs have the best regular season record. The reason that I think the preseason publications didn't give them credit is the same reason I didn't give them credit, is because you're not picking typically who's going to have the best regular season. You're picking teams you think that you can win a Super Bowl with.
can advance.
And I know you love Andy Reid.
Yes.
I love Andy. I would love Andy Reid to be my coach from February 10th until January 3rd. And then if we could have someone else in that 5-week period we call the playoffs. I feel similarly about Alex Smith. Alex Smith, I love you as my quarterback. And I don't know.
Will they continue to be able to throw the ball deep down the field?
Right. And so that's for me, that's
weapon-wise, I mean, Hill is a guy that you have to, every time you break the huddle, you got to figure out how you're going to defend that guy. Kelsey's the same way at the tight end position. They've got some matchups, and then the Kareem Hunt.
Well, that's also why. That's why maybe the preseason.
That's a game changer.
No one knew he was going to be.
Nobody thought this was him.
First things first, Mark Schlereth joining us this morning again. Hey, Mark.
Good morning.
Good to have you here.
Yeah.
We're starting with some alarming news out of the NFL being reported this morning. An autopsy revealed that former Patriots tight end Aaron Hernandez had stage 3 CTE. Doctors said it was the most severe case they had seen for anyone of Hernandez's age. He was just 24 when he stopped playing, 27 when he took his life earlier this year. A recent study found signs of the disease in 110 of 111 former NFL players. So, Cece, you played in this league for 16 years. I'm very curious to know. Well, both of you guys played in the league. I'll start with you, Cece. What is your reaction to this news when you heard it?
It's frightening. It's scary. It's scary information. The unknown, me being basically twice Aaron's age and having a number of my ex-teammates and or good friends, that being Dave Duerson, Junior Seau, Andre Waters, that have taken their life in some form or fashion. And I can't disregard the things that I've done to my body. So there was a scare yesterday, not like some of the other scares, you know. So I wonder, at even such a young age, I wonder like where I am. Like I wonder, like, what is my brain saying right now? And there's just, I thought about the kids that I've taught this game to. There's 11 kids right now. My son plays in the CFL. And I got a couple kids who have played 6 or 7 years. They're not playing. But I got 11 kids in the NFL right now that I've coached off one high school team, St. Thomas Aquinas. I'm talking about some great players. Geno Atkins, Giovanni Bernard, Joey Bosa, Philip Dorsett, Marcus Gilbert, James White, Bobby Hart, LaMarcus Joyner, Jake Ruddick. Like, I've told these kids, I've told their parents, like, man, this is a way in life. This is a great sport for young men. For most of those kids, they couldn't have gone to college without a football scholarship. So I questioned myself as a coach. I questioned my career and what's going to happen to me. You know, so I do have concerns because I have seen people that I didn't think Junior Seau, like, it was possible that he could be hurt. Like there could be anything wrong with him like that. So I have a healthy respect for the information that's been presented. And I would say that it was not a good feeling. It didn't make me feel better about my future. But if I could do it all over again, I mean, this is what I dreamed of doing. Like I would do what I did. I would, because I had a chance to play basketball or football. And I love football more than I love basketball. And I would do it all over again. Mm-hmm. But it is frightening. It is frightening. A man 27 with severe CTE, 110 of 111 brains that were examined of former players. Like, so to me, I would be naive to think that something potentially could be wrong with my brain.
I was eloquent, and I totally respect where you're coming from. I don't spend 2 seconds worried about what's going to happen to my brain. I don't think about it ever. And I look at it from my standpoint is that if you've played football at any level, you have some sort of brain damage. You've done that to yourself. And I accept that responsibility fully. I think what we don't look at is what your lifestyle and how that contributes to the way you behave or the symptoms that you have. You're a lucid guy. You're an intelligent guy. I've been around you for a long time. I've known you for a long time. I've got a lot of friends, and I know we've all done a certain amount of brain damage to ourselves. And I've got a lot of friends who are the best husbands, the best fathers, some of the best men I've ever been around, played for a long time, and I know they've done irreparable damage. But we just look at football and say, boom, CTE, look. Yes. And I'm saying, well, what happens when your whole identity comes from being a football player? Like, my identity is not being a football player. It's being a husband, it's being a father. Those things are important to me. So when football was taken away from me, and it will be taken away from all of us, I didn't fall into depression. I looked at it as an opportunity to start the next chapter of my life. But this is exciting. But a lot of guys, that's what they do. People in general, they put their faith or they put their identity in what they do for a living. And when it gets taken away, I don't care what you do, you're going to fall into some type of depression. So where does that depression, how does that affect your brain? We're not studying that. How does your lifestyle? Are you drinking? Are you using drugs? Do you take care of yourself? Because I believe the brain has enough elasticity and enough connectivity to overcome some of the brain damage that you do as a football player if you're living right afterwards.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern on FS1. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.